The USS Monitor, breaking barriers in naval warfare. One ship changed the future of the modern Navy forever, and that one ship is the USS Monitor.
Its revolving turret, full iron plating, and steam-powered engine were all relatively new ideas in naval warfare, and putting these all together was a gamble for the Union, but a risk they were willing to take. Luckily, the Monitor produced successful results in the Civil War by completing its objective to defend the Union harbors. Its battle against the Virginia gave a glimpse of the future as two ironclads met for the first time in history. The Monitor's success would end the 1,000-year-old tradition to build wooden ships in Europe, and opened a new realm of possibilities in the sea.
It all started when the Civil War began and the South broke away from the Union to fight for their own freedom, and later for slavery, which was an agricultural necessity for the economy of the South, and they were not willing to just give it up because the Union told them to do so. In early 1960, the Union's prized warship, the USS Merrimack, was decommissioned in Virginia after 4 years in service. When the conflict between the North and the South embarked, the Union sailors aboard the Merrimack fled and burned the powerful ship to prevent the South from ever using it. However, the Confederates needed a fleet and somehow built an ironclad out of the USS Merrimack's remains by reinforcing the hull of the ship with iron and placing 10 heavy guns that could easily penetrate the wood of the Union ships. When the construction was complete, the Confederates renamed the famous ship the CSS Virginia and sent it out to destroy the Union fleet and attack their harbors, which would allow them to trade with other countries and not be limited to their own resources. In response to this unfortunate dilemma, John Erickson and his team were commissioned to build an ironclad warship by President Lincoln, who believed would be the most effective counter to the Virginia. Lincoln believed that an ironclad could help defend the Union harbors from the Confederate Virginia and contribute to the Union blockade of the South. John Erickson and his team managed to build the most complicated machine of its time in a surprising 100 days, or about 3.5 months, and named it the USS Monitor. The lower hull was essentially a 124-foot long, 6-foot deep iron bathtub divided in half by a main transverse bulkhead. Engines and machinery were on the bulkhead, accommodations forward, with the turret on top. The flat upper raft was of standard warship oak beam and pine deck construction, to which the iron plate was bolted on the deck and sides. The upper raft fit snugly over the lower bathtub, strengthened with heavy brackets and riveted together. When the construction was complete, Lieutenant John Warden and Samuel Greene led the Monitor to face its mortal enemy, the CSS Virginia. When they arrived on March 8th of 1862, they discovered that half their fleet was utterly destroyed by the Virginia and that it would be back the next day to finish the job. When the Virginia arrived the next day to finish off the Federal Navy, they discovered that a tiny ship with a turret on top was coming straight for them. The Virginia opened fire, but their exploding shells that worked so well on the other Federal ships did little or no damage to the thick iron walls of the Monitor. On the contrary, the Monitor's 11-inch turrets could fire 165-pound solid shot that did much to dent and disfigure the iron plating on the Virginia. After 2 hours of shelling the Monitor with no result, the Confederates ceased to fire, and Lieutenant John Eggleston, when asked why his gun crews had stopped firing at the Monitor, stated that, "After 2 hours and a half of incessant firing, I find that I can do her about as much damage by snapping my thumbs at her every 2 minutes and a half." After several hours of close combat, the Monitor's commander, John Warden, got temporarily blinded by a shot that blew up nearby. The Monitor disengaged and retreated to the safety of the shallow waters, and the Virginia, short of ammunition and threatened by the dangerous ironclad, fled to the safety of Portsmouth. This battle resulted in a stalemate, with both sides claiming victory, but it is generally regarded as a strategic Union victory. However, the Monitor did successfully defend the Union forces and stop the seemingly invincible Virginia. In the letters of Lieutenant Samuel Greene, it is said that after the conclusion of the battle, Secretary Fox hailed us and told us that we had fought the greatest naval battle on record and behaved as gallantly as men could.
For the next few months, the Monitor remained in Hampton Roads protecting the Union fleet there. The Virginia ventured out from Portsmouth occasionally, but never confronted the Monitor again. With the threat from the Virginia neutralized, the Union blockade operations from Hampton Roads were restored, leaving Major General George B. McClellan free to advance his Army of the Potomac up the Virginia Peninsula towards Richmond. During the 2-day battle, The Federal Navy suffered 261 killed and 108 wounded, more killed and wounded in any battle in American naval history at that time. This day would remain the bloodiest battle in American naval history until December 7, 1941, when the Japanese Air Force attacked the Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor. But no ship lives forever. On December 31, 1862, the USS Monitor was being towed by the Rhode Island when it was caught in a terrible storm and sunk along with 16 of its crew. However, its legacy lives on as scientists attempt to preserve its remains in the Monitor National Marine Sanctuary in Virginia. Most of their efforts are focused around the turret, a revolutionary artifact, because it could rotate a full 360 degrees, a feature that no ship had at that time. But even while the body of the Monitor is in pieces, its legacy continues in its long-term impact on the U.S. Navy.
The near invincibility of the USS Monitor was shown when the CSS Virginia failed to deal any considerable damage to it during the Battle of Hampton Roads. Lieutenant Samuel Green wrote in his journal that shot, shell, grape, canister, musket, and rifle balls flew about in every direction but did us no damage, referring to the USS Monitor's seemingly impenetrable iron plating. These same characteristics have been carried through time to our modern Navy. Battleships like the USS Arizona or the USS Missouri display this trait proudly. Now, mere cannonballs would do nothing to our Navy, meaning explosives like bombs or torpedoes are the only thing that can penetrate this characteristic of the USS Monitor. This can also be carried over to aircraft carriers in their superior structural integrity, which allows it to carry many multi-ton aircraft, a feat impossible to wooden ships. But the USS Monitor not only affected our modern Navy, but also led to the end of the Civil War. Winning the Civil War shaped the United States to what it is today, keeping all people equal. During the desperate beginnings of the Civil War, the USS Monitor was designed, built, and delivered in less than 6 months, just in time to stop the CSS Virginia, a great threat to the Union Navy. Erickson convinced the Washington establishment that it would be the right ship for the Hampton Roads campaign. In fact, the USS Monitor was, as stated, the wrong ship at the right time, a brown water ship designed for a blue water navy. The fact that Erickson had been thinking about this new system of naval warfare for so long meant that he had a clear vision of what it should be like almost as soon as he was requested to build the Monitor. His great genius, however, was to understand that such a novel ship could be built with only tried and tested technology and a trusted network of collaborators. Contrary to the legend, almost nothing aboard the Monitor had not previously been built and tested in service, and Erickson limited the suppliers to men he knew or knew he could trust to obtain vital resources, notably iron, in time of war-driven scarcity.
After the Battle of Hampton Roads, a new type of naval ship was born. Monitor-type turreted ironclads were widely sought for coastal defense in European and Latin American nations, especially because of their success and affordability. Britain and France, the two major naval powers, weighed the merits of sea-going versus coastal ironclads. In British Parliament, the debates were fierce as some pointed out that the Monitor barely survived its maiden voyage, while devotees of the latter pointed out the British could build 6 Monitors for the price and schedule of one warrior. In the end, both Britain and France hedged their bets by continuing to build sea-going armored warships, while also investing in coastal defense. In the 20 years after Hampton Roads, they constructed 28 coastal defense vessels and rams, including 10 Monitors compared with 53 ocean-going ships. Now the conventional battleship could be replaced by a relatively inexpensive alternative that changed naval technology into something closer to our modern Navy. The USS Monitor's success opened the gateway for future inventions through the first ever clash of 2 ironclads, which marked a turning point in naval history as the world turned to ironclads rather than wooden ships for future ideas and creation. A Southern reporter who saw the battle summed it up by saying, "This successful and terrible work will create a revolution in naval warfare, and henceforth iron will be the king of the seas."